To this generation, I would say, memorize some bit of verse of truth or beauty. It may do you a turn in life. Good evening. I'm Janet King, retired Reading School District English teacher, and I want to join with Mrs. George Reese of Edgar Lee Masters Spoon River Anthology to recommend that you all memorize some poems. Tonight, we are gathered for the 11th annual Reading School District Poetry Out Loud competition. We have 22 students who have memorized poems and are going to present them to our judges so that someone may be selected to represent Reading High School at the district competition at the Ware Center on January 25th. Poetry Out Loud is a national recitation competition. A pilot program was held in 2005, followed by the first national competition in 2006. The Reading School District began participating in 2007, and in that time, we have won 9 district titles, and we have had 2 state champions, Devonna Smith in 2011, and Daphne McMaster in 2012. More important, however, than our showing at the state and national levels is the spreading of poetry among the Reading School District students. Young people who have little interest in poetry or the spoken word now have memorized poems which will stay with them forever. This kind of learning is life-changing. Our school district may be financially challenged, but this program makes us spiritually rich. We have done wonderful things for 10 years of students, going on 11. And we are very proud of everyone who participates, students and teachers. Now I'd like to go over the logistics of the program. Each student participating tonight has won a classroom competition. All of them will compete in the first round. Their performances will be judged on physical presence, voice and articulation, dramatic appropriateness, level of complexity of the poem, evidence of understanding, and overall effect. Then there will be a brief intermission while the scores from the first round are totaled. The top 10 will enter the second round of competition, reciting their second poems, which will be judged on the same criteria. At the end of the second round, both rounds of performance will be totaled to determine the student who will be the 2017 Reading High School Poetry Out Loud champion. This kind of endeavor requires the help of many people. First, I'd like to thank our judges, Dr. Al Casacedo, Mr. Alan Moyer, Ms. Jill Sheets, Dr. Heather Thomas. Our accuracy judge is Ms. Paige Seckler, and Mrs. Lori McGovern is doing the tabulating. Kyle Brown and the Nightlife crew are taping this program for broadcast at a later date. A special thanks to Ms. Susan Wagner, who has lent her coaching expertise to all of our students. Mr. Thomas Hughes and the rest of the English department has supported this program. And a special thank you to the teachers who were present at the creation all those many years ago. Mrs. Angela Rodriguez, Ms. Paige Seckler, and Mrs. Jerry Correnda joined me back in 2006 in thinking that this competition would be beneficial to our students. Little did we know how far it would go. Finally, I want to remind you, in my best English teacher voice, turn off your cell phones. Please refrain from talking, whispering, and wiggling noisily. These students have worked very, very hard, and we respect their efforts. It's extremely difficult to get up and recite a poem, and it is made much more difficult by any distractions coming from the audience. I know that you value their performance. If you need at any time to leave the auditorium, please try to do it between recitations. Your consideration for their work makes a huge difference. Thank you. And now we're going to begin our competition.
Poem for Haruka by June Jordan. I never thought I'd keep a record of my pain or happiness, like candles lighting the entire soft lace of the air around the full length of your hair. A shower, organized by God in brown and auburn undulations, luminous like particles of flame. But now, I do retrieve an afternoon of apricots and water interspersed with cigarettes and sand and rocks we walked across. How easily you held my hand beside the low tide of the world. Now, I do relive an evening of retreat, a bridge I left behind where all the solid heat of lust and tender trembling lay as cruel and as kind as passion spins its infinite tergiversations in between the bitter and the sweet. Alone and longing for you, now I do.
Possible Answers to Prayer by Scott Carnes. Your petitions, though they continue to bear just the one signature, have been duly recorded. Your anxieties, despite their constant, relatively narrow scope and inadvertent entertainment value, nonetheless serve to bring your person vividly to mind. Your repentance, all but obscured beneath a burgeoning yellow fog of frankly more conspicuous resentment, is sufficient. Your intermittent concern for the sick, the suffering, the needy poor is sometimes recognizable to me, if not to them. Your angers, your zeal, your lip-smackingly righteous indignation towards the many whose habits and sympathies offend you, these must burn away before you'll apprehend how near I am. With what fervor I adore precisely these, the several who rouse your passions.
Every Single Day by John Straley, after Raymond Carver's Hummingbird. Suppose I said the word springtime, and I wrote the words King Salmon on a piece of paper and mailed it to you. When you opened it, would you remember that afternoon we spent together in the yellow boat? When the early whales were feeding, and we caught our first fish of the year? Or would you remember that time off Cape Flattery when you were a little girl? Your father smoking, telling stories as he ran the boat. Then that tug and zing of that very first fish spooling off into the gray-green world. You laughing and brushing back your hair before setting the hook. I know I'm hard to understand sometimes, particularly when you are standing at the post office with only a piece of paper saying King Salmon on it. But just think of it as a promissory note. And that electric tug, that thrill pulling your mind into deep water is how I feel about you. Every single day.
El Olvido by Judith Ortiz Coker. It is a dangerous thing to forget the climate of your birthplace, to choke out the voices of dead relatives when in dreams they call you by your secret name. It is dangerous to spurn the clothes you were born to wear for the sake of fashion. Dangerous to use weapons and sharp instruments you are not familiar with. Dangerous to disdain the plaster stains before which your mother kneels praying with embarrassing fervor that you survive in the place you have chosen to live. A bare, cold room with no pictures on the walls, a forgetting place where she fears you will die of loneliness and exposure. Jesus, Maria y Jose, she says, el olvido is a dangerous thing.
Domestic Situation by Ernest Hilbert. Maybe you've heard about this, maybe not. A man came home and chucked his girlfriend's cat in the wood chipper. This really happened. Dinner wasn't ready on time, and a lot of other little things went wrong. He spat on her father, who came out when he learned about it. He also broke her pinky, stole her checks, and got her sister pregnant. But she stood by him, stood strong through it all, because she loved him. She loved him. You see, she actually said that. And then she went and married him. She felt some unique call. Don't try to understand what another person means by love. Don't even bother.
Quite frankly, or Mark Halliday. They got old. They got old and died. But first he composed blatant depictions of how much they lost and how much they care about losing. Meantime, their hair got thin and more thin as their shoulders went slumpy. Okay, but not before the photo albums got arranged by them. Arranged for the niftiness, not just 2 or 3, but 18 photo albums. Yes, 18 eventually. 18 albums pouring the beauty of them, and not someone else. Them, their relations, and friends. Incontrovertible. Playing croquet in that Bloomington yard. Floating on these comic inflatables at Dow Lake. Giggling at the Dairy Queen. Waltzing at the wedding, building a Laker palace on the porch, holding the baby beside the rental truck, leaning on the Hemingway statue at Pamplona, discussing the eternity of art in desert Indian restaurants. Yes, and so, quite frankly, at the end of the day, they got old and died, okay, sure. But quite frankly, how much does that matter in the view of the 18 photo albums? Big ones, 13 inches by 12 inches, each full of such undeniable beauty.
Snow Day by Billy Collins. Today, we woke up to a revolution of snow. Its white flag waving over everything. The landscape vanished. Not a single mouse to punctuate the blankness. And beyond these windows, the government buildings smothered, schools and libraries buried, the post office lost under the noiseless drift, the paths of trains softly blocked, the world fallen under this folly. In a while, I will put on some boots and step out like someone walking in water, and the dog will porpoise through the drifts, and I will shake a laden branch, sending a cold shower down on us both. But for now, I am a willing prisoner in this house, a sympathizer with the enlarged cause of snow. I will make a pot of tea and listen to the plastic radio on the counter, as glad as anyone to hear the news that the kitty corner school is closed, the ding dong school closed, the high ho nursery school closed, along with some will be delighted to hear the toadstool school, the little school, little sparrows nursery school, little stars preschool, peas and carrots day school, the Tom Thumb Child Center, all closed, and clap your hands, the Peanuts Play School. So this is where the children hide all day. These are the nests where they litter and draw, where they put on their bright miniature jackets, all darting and climbing and sliding, all but the few girls whispering by the fence. And now I am listening hard in the grandiose silence of the snow, trying to hear what those three girls are plotting, what riot is afoot, which small queen is about to be brought down.
Request for Toy Piano by Tony Hoagland. Play the one about the family of the ducks, where the ducks go down to the river, and one of them thinks the water will be cold. But they jump in anyway and like it and splash around. No, I must play the one about the nervous man from Palestine in row 14 with a brown bag in his lap, in which a gun is hidden in a sandwich. Play the one about the handsome man and woman standing on the steps of her apartment, and how the darkness and her perfume and the beating of their hearts conjoin to make them feel like leaping from the edge of chance. No, I should play the one about the hard rectangle of the credit card hidden in the man's back pocket, and how the woman spent an hour plucking out her brows, and how her perfume was made from the destruction of 100 flowers. Then play the one about the flower industry, in which the migrant workers curse their own infected hands from tossing sheaves of roses and carnations into the back of the refrigerated trucks. No, I must play the one about the single yellow daffodil standing on my kitchen table, whose cut stem draws the water upward so the plant is flushed with the conviction that the water has been sent to find and raise it up from somewhere so deep inside the earth, not even flowers can remember.
Mr. Darcy by Victoria Chang. In the end, she just wanted the house and a horse, not much more. What if he didn't own the house, or worse, not even a horse? How do we separate the things from a man from the things? Is a man still the same without his reins? Here it rains every 15 minutes. It would be foolish to marry someone without an umbrella. Did Cinderella really love the prince? Or just the prince on the curtains in the ballroom? Once I went window shopping, but I didn't want a window. How do you know it's time to get a new man? One who can win more things at the fair. I already have 4 stuffed pandas from the fair I won fair and square. Is it time to be less square? To wear something more revealing? In North and South, she does the dealing. Gives him the money in the end, but she falls in love with him when he has the money, when he's still running away. If the water is running in the other room, is it wrong for me to not want to chase it because it owns nothing else? When I wave to a man, I love what happens when another man with a lot more bags waves back.
Constantly Risking Absurdity, number 15, by Lawrence Burlingame. Constantly risking absurdity and death whenever he performs above the heads of his audience. The poet, like an acrobat, climbs on rhyme to a high wire of his own making, and balancing on I-beams above a sea of faces, paces his way to the other side of the day, performing entrechat and sleight-of-foot tricks and other high theatrics, and all without mistaking anything for what it may not be. For he's the super realist who must perforce perceive taught truth before taking the least stance or step in his supposed dance toward that still higher perch, where beauty stands and waits with gravity to start her death defying leap. And he, a little Charlie Chaplin man, who may or may not catch her fair eternal form, spreading in the empty air of existence.
Cartoon Physics, Part 1, by Nick Flynn. Children under, say, 10 shouldn't know that the universe is ever expanding, inexorably pushing into the vacuum. Galaxies swallowed by galaxies, whole solar systems collapsing. All of it acted out in silence. At 10, we're still learning the rules of cartoon animation. That if a man draws a door on a rock, only he can pass through it. Anyone else who tries will crash into the rock. 10-year-olds should stick with burning houses, car wrecks, ships going down, earthbound, tangible disasters, arenas where they can be heroes. You can run back into a burning house. Sinking ships have lifeboats. The trucks will come with their ladders. If you jump, you will be saved. A child places her hand on the roof of a school bus and drives across the city of sand. She knows the exact spot it will skid, at which point the bridge will give, who will swim to safety and who will be pulled under by sharks. She will learn that if a man runs off the edge of a cliff, he will not fall until he notices his mistake. Blackberry Picking by Seamus Heaney for Philip Hobsbawm. Late August, given heavy rain and sun for a full week, the blackberries would ripen. At first, just one, a glossy purple clod among others, red, green, hard as a nut. You ate that first one and its flesh was sweet, like thickened wine. Summer's blood was in it, leaving stains upon the tongue and lust for picking. Then, red ones inked up and that hunger sent us out with milk cans, pea tins, jam pots, where briars scratched and wet grass bleached our boots. Round hayfields, cornfields, and potato drills we trekked and picked until our cans were full, until the tinkling bottom had been covered with green ones, and on top, big dark blobs burned like a plate of eyes. Our hands were peppered with thorn pricks, our palms sticky as bluebeards. We hoarded the fresh berries in the byre, but when the bath was filled, we found a fur, a rat-gray fungus gliding on our cash. The juice was stinking too. Once off the bush, the fruit fermented. The sweet flesh would turn sour. I always felt like crying. It wasn't fair that all the lovely canfuls smelled of rot. Each year I hoped they'd keep, knew they would not.
Barter by Sarah Teasdale. Life has loveliness to sell, all beautiful and splendid things. Blue waves whitened on a cliff, soaring fire that sways and sings, and children's faces looking up, holding wonder like a cup. Life has loveliness to sell, music like a curve of gold, scent of pine trees in the rain, eyes that love you, arms that hold, and for your spirit still delight, holy thoughts that star the night. Spend all you have for loveliness. Buy it and never count the cost. For one white singing hour of peace, count many a year of strife well lost. And for a breath of ecstasy, give all you have been or could be.
To the Desert by Benjamin Aled Sanz. I came to you one rainless August night. You taught me how to live without the rain. You are thirst, and thirst is all I know. You are sand, wind, sun, and burning sky, the hottest blue. You blow breeze and brand your breath into my mouth. You reach, then bend. You're forced to break, blow, burn, and make me new. You wrap your name tight around my ribs and keep me warm. I was born for you. Above, below, by you surrounded. I wake you at dawn. Never break your knot. Reach, rise, below. Sálvame, mi Dios. Trágame, mi tierra. Salva, traga, break me. I am bread. I will be the water for your thirst.
Fishing on the Susquehanna in July by Billy Collins. I have never been fishing on the Susquehanna, or on any river for that matter, to be perfectly honest. Not in July, or any month, have I had the pleasure, if it is a pleasure, of fishing on the Susquehanna. I am more likely to be found in a quiet room, like this one, a painting of a woman on the wall, a bowl of tangerines on the table, trying to manufacture the sensation of fishing on the Susquehanna. there is little doubt that others have been fishing on the Susquehanna, rowing upstream in a wooden boat, sliding the oars under the water, and raising them to drip in the light. But the nearest I have ever come to fishing on the Susquehanna was one afternoon in a museum in Philadelphia, when I balanced a little egg of time in front of a painting in which that river curled around a bend under a blue cloud-ruffled sky, dense trees along the banks, and a fellow with a red bandana sitting in a small, green, flat-bottomed boat holding the thin whip of a pole. That is something I am unlikely ever to do, I remember saying to myself and the person next to me. Then I blinked and moved on to other American scenes of haystacks, water whitening over rocks, even one of a brown hare who seemed so wired with alertness. I imagined him springing right out of the frame.
Abandoned Farmhouse by Ted Kuzer. He was a big man, to the size of his shoes, on a pile of broken dishes by the house. A tall man, too, says the length of the bed in an upstairs room. And a good, God-fearing man, says the Bible with the broken back, on the floor below the window, dusty with sun. But not a man for farming, say the fields cluttered with boulders and the leaky barn. A woman lived with him, says the bedroom walls papered with lilacs and the kitchen shelves covered with oilcloth. And they had a child, says a sandbox made from a tractor tire. Money was scarce, says the jars of plum preserve and canned tomatoes sealed in the cellar hole. And the winter's cold, say the rags in the window frames. It was lonely here, says the narrow country road. Something went wrong, says the empty house in the weed-choked yard. Stones in the field say he was not a farmer. Still sealed jars in the cellar say she left in nervous haste. And the child, its toys are strewn in the yard like branches after a storm. A rubber cow, a rusty tractor with a broken plow, a doll in overalls. Something went wrong, they say.
This afternoon was the color of water falling through sunlight. The trees glittered with the tumbling of leaves. The sidewalks shone like alleys of dropped maple leaves. And the houses ran along them, laughing out of square open windows. Under a tree in the park, two little boys, lying flat on their faces, were carefully gathering red berries to put in a pasteboard box. Today, I can only gather it and put it into my lunchbox. For I have time for nothing but the endeavor to balance myself upon a broken world.
I am offering this poem by Jimmy Santiago Baca. I am offering this poem to you since I have nothing else to give. Keep it like a warm coat when the winter comes to cover you, or like a pair of thick socks the cold cannot bite through. I love you. I have nothing else to give you,
So it is a pot full of yellow cord to warm your belly in the winter. It is a scarf for your head to wear over your hair, to tie up around your face. I love you. Keep it. Treasure this as you would if you were lost, needing direction, and the wilderness life becomes more mature. And in the corner of your drawer, tucked away like a cabin or hogan in dense trees, come knocking, and I will answer, give you directions, and let you warm yourself by this fire. Rest by this fire and make you feel safe. I love you. It's all I have to give, and all anyone needs to live. And to go on living inside when the world outside no longer cares if you live or die. Remember, I love you.
Truth by Gwendolyn Brooks. And if sun comes, how shall we greet him? Shall we not dread him? Shall we not fear him after so lengthy a session with shade? Though we have wept for him, though we have prayed all through the night years, what if we wake one shimmering morning to hear the fierce hammering of his firm knuckles hard on the door? Shall we not shudder? Shall we not flee into the shelter? The dear, thick shelter of familiar propitious haze. Sweet is it to sleep in the coolness of snug unawareness. The dark hangs heavily over the eyes.
Happiness by Jane Kenyon. There's just no accounting for happiness, or the way it turns up like a prodigal who comes back to the dust at your feet, having squandered a fortune far away. And how can you not forgive? You make a feast in honor of what was lost and take from its place the finest garment, which you saved for an occasion you could not imagine. And you weep night and day to know that you were not abandoned, that happiness saved its most extreme form for you alone. No. Happiness is the uncle you never knew about, who flies a single-engine plane onto the grassy landing strip, hitchhikes into town, and inquires at every door until he finds you asleep, mid-afternoon as you so often are, during the unmerciful hours of your despair. It comes to the monk in his cell. It comes to the woman sweeping the street with a birch broom, to the child whose mother has passed out from drink. It comes to the lover, to the dog chewing a sock, to the pusher, to the basket maker, and to the clerk stacking cans of carrots in the night. It even comes to the boulder in the perpetual shade of pine barrens, to rain falling on the open sea, to the wine glass, weary of holding wine.
The Healing Improvisation of Hair by J. Graham. If you undo your do, you would be strange. Hair has been on my mind. I used to lean in the doorway and watch my stony woman wind the copper through the black and play with my understanding. Show me she could take a cup of river water and watch it shimmy, watch it change, turn around and become ash bone. Wind in the cottonwoods wakes me to a day so thick its breastbone shows. So paid out, it shakes me free of its blue dust. I will arrange that river water, bottom juice. I conjure my head in the stream and ride with the silk feel of it as my woman bathes me and shaves away the scorn, sponges the grit of solitude from my skin, laves the salt water of self-esteem over my feathery body. How like joy to come upon me and remembering a head of hair and the way water would caress it, and just a beauty in the flare and cut of the only witness of my dance under sorrow's tree. This swift darkness is spring's first hour. I carried my life like a stone in a ragged pocket, but I had a true weaving song, a sly way with rhythm, a healing tone.
The Lamb by Linda Gregg. It was a picture I had after the war. A bombed English church. I was too young to know the word English or war, but I knew the picture. The ruined city still seemed noble. The cathedral with its roof blown off was not less godly. The church was the same, plus rain and sky. Birds flew in and out of the holes God's fist made in the walls. All our desire for love or children is treated like rags by the enemy. I knew so much, and sang anyway, like a bird who will sing until it is brought down. When they take away the trees, the child picks up a stick and says, "This is a tree. This, the house, and the family." As we might, through a door of what had been a house, into the field of rubble, walks a single lamb, tilting its head, curious, unafraid, hungry.
"100 Love Sonnets, 17, by Pablo Neruda, translated by Mark Eisner. I don't love you as if you were a rose of salt, topaz, or arrow of carnations that propagate fire. I love you as one loves certain obscure things, secretly, between the shadow and the soul. I love you as the plant that doesn't bloom but carries the light of those flowers, hidden within itself. And thanks to your love, the tight aroma that arose from the earth lives dimly in my body. I love you without knowing how, or when, or from where. I love you directly without problems or pride. I love you like this because I don't know any other way to love, except in this form, in which I am not, nor are you, so close that your hand upon my chest is mine, so close
Let your eyes close with my dreams.
Weighing In by Rina Espaillat. What the scale tells you is how much the earth has missed you, body. How it wants you back again after you leave it to go forth into the light. Do you remember how earth hardly noticed you then? Others would rock you in their arms, warm in the flow that fed you, coaxed you upright. Then earth began to claim you with spots and fevers, began to lick at you with a bruised knee, a bloody shin, and finally, to stoke you, body, drumming intimate coded messages through music you dance to unawares. There in your dreaming, and your poems, and your obedient blood. Body, how useful you became. How lucky, heavy with news and breakage. Rich and sad sometimes, imagining that greedy zero you must have been, that empty sack of possibilities never to come tomorrow. But look at you now, body, soft old shoe that love wears when it's stirring. Look down. Look how earth wants what you weigh, needs what you know.
Love Song by Dorothy Parker. My own dear love, he is strong and bold, and he cares not what comes after. His words ring sweet as a chime of gold, and his eyes are lit with laughter. He is jubilant as a flag unfurled. Oh, a girl, she did not forget him. My own dear love, he is all my world. And I wish I'd never met him. My love, he's mad, and my love, he's fleet, and wild young wood thing bore him. The ways are fair to his roaming feet, and the skies are sunlit for him. As sharply sweet to my heart he seems as the fragrance of acacia. My own dear love, he is all my dreams. And I wish here in Asia. My love runs by like a day in June, and he makes no friends of sorrows. He'll tread his galloping rigadoon in the pathway of the morrows. He'll live his days where the sunbeams start, nor could storm or wind uproot him. My own dear love, he is all my heart. And I wish somebody'd shoot him.
For Love by Robert Creeley. For Bobby. Yesterday, I wanted to speak of it, that sense above the others to me. Important because all that I know derives from what it teaches. Today, what is it that is finally so helpless, different, despairs of its own statement, wants to turn away, endlessly to turn away? If the moon did not, no. If you did not, I wouldn't either. But what would I not do? What prevention? What thing so quickly stopped? That is love, yesterday or tomorrow, not now. Can I eat what you give me? I have not earned it. Must I think of everything as earned? Now love also becomes a reward so remote from me that I have only made it with my mind. Here is tedium, despair, a painful sense of isolation and whimsical if pompous self-regard. But that image is only in the mind's vague structure. Vague to me because it is my own. Love. What do I think to say I cannot say? What have you become to ask? What have I made you into? Companion? Good company? Crossed legs with skirt? Or soft body under the bones of the bed? Nothing says anything but that which it wishes would come true. Fears what else might happen in some other place, some other time, not this one. A voice in my place, an echo of that only in yours. Let me stumble into not the confession, but the obsession I begin with now, for you also. Also some time beyond place, or place beyond time, no mind left to say anything at all. That face gone now. Into the company of love, it all returns.
What Kind of Times Are These? By Adrian Rich. There's a place between two stands of trees where the grass grows uphill and the old revolutionary road breaks off into shadows near a meeting house, abandoned by the persecuted who disappeared into those shadows. I've walked there, picking mushrooms at the edge of dread. But don't be fooled. This isn't a Russian poem. This is not somewhere else, but here. Our country moving closer to its own truth and dread, its own ways of making people disappear. I won't tell you where the place is. The dark mesh of the wood meeting the unmarked strip of light. Ghost-ridden crossroads, leaf mold paradise. I know already who wants to buy it, sell it, make it disappear. And I won't tell you where it is, so why do I tell you anything? Because you still listen. Because in times like these, to have you listen at all, it's necessary to talk about trees.
Danse Russe by William Carlos Williams. If I, when my wife is sleeping, and the baby and Kathleen are sleeping, and the sun is a flame-white disk in silken mists above shining trees, if I, in my north room, dance naked, grotesquely before my mirror, waving my shirt round my head, and singing softly to myself, I am lonely, lonely. I was born to be lonely. I am best so. If I admire my arms, my face, my shoulders, flanks, buttocks against the yellow-drawn shades, who shall say I am not the happy genius of my household?
Lazy by David Yetzi. I don't say things I don't want to say, or chew the fat with fat cats just because. With favor givers who want favors back, I tend to pass on going for the ask. I send instead a series of regrets, slip the winding snares that people lay, the unruffledness I feel as a result, the lank repose, the psychic field of rye swayed in wavy air as my respite among the chivalry of clanging egos and the pack commuter train again tonight, sapping and demeaning. It takes a lot to get from bed to work and back to bed. I barely go an hour before I'm caught, wincing at the way that woman laughs, or he keeps clucking at his magazine, and my annoyance fills me with annoyance. It's laziness that lets them seem unreal. A radio with in and out reception blaring like hell when it finally hits the station. The song that's on is not the one I'd hoped for, so I wait distractedly for what comes next.
Ice Child by John Haynes. Cold for so long, unable to speak, yet your mouth seems framed on a cry or stifled question. Who placed you here and left you to this lonely eternity of ash and ice, and himself returned to dust fields, the church, and the temple? Was it God, the sun god of the Incas, the imperial god of the Spaniards, or only the priest of that god, self-elected, voice of the volcano that speaks once in 100 years? And I wonder, with your image before me, what life might have you lived? Had you lived at all? Whose companion, whose love, to be perhaps no more than a slave of that earthly master? A jug of water on your shoulder, year after stunted year. A bundle of reeds and corn, kindling for a fire on whose buried hearth. There were furies to be fed, then as now. Blood to fatten the sun, a heart for the lightning to strike. And now the Furies walk the streets, a swarm in the milling crowd. They stand to the podium, speak of their coming ascension. Through all this drift and clamor, you have survived in this cramped and haunted effigy. Another entry on a historian's dated page. Under the weight of this mountain, once a god, now only restless stone, we find your interrupted life, placed here among the trilobites and shells, solely unearthed.
The Gaff by C.K. Williams. One. If that someone who's me, yet not me, yet who judges me, is always with me as he is, shouldn't he have been there when I said so long ago that thing I said? If he who rakes me with such not trivial shame for minor sins now were there then, shouldn't he have warned me he'd even now devastate me for my unpardonable affront? I'm a child then, yet already I've composed this conscience beast who harries me. Is there anything else I can say with certainty about who I was, except that he could already draw from infinitesimal transgressions complex chords of remorse and orchestrate ever undiminishing retribution from the hapless rest of myself. 2. The son of some friends of my parents has died, and my parents, paying their call, take me along, and I'm sent out with the dead boy's brother and some others to play. We're joking around, and some words come to my mind which, to my amazement, are said. How do you know when you can laugh when somebody dies? Your brother dies. is what's said. And the others go quiet. The backyard goes quiet. Everyone stares, and I want to know now why that someone in me who's me yet not me let me say it. Shouldn't he have told me the contrition cycle would from then be ever upon me? It didn't matter that I'd really only wanted to know how grief ends and when. 3. I could hear the boy's mother sobbing inside, then stopping. Sobbing, then stopping. Was the end of her grief already there? Had someone in her told her it would end? Was someone in her kinder to her? Not tearing at her as mine did, still does, me, for guessing grief someday ends. Is that why her sobbing stops sometimes? She didn't laugh, though, or I never heard her. How do you know when you can laugh? Why couldn't someone have been there in me, not just to accuse me, but to explain? The kids were playing again. I was playing. I didn't hear anything more from inside. The way now, sometimes what's in me is silent too. And sometimes, though never really, forgets.
Two, by Sarah Helen Whitman. Vainly my heart had with thy sorcery striven. It had no refuge from thy love, no heaven but in thy fatal presence. From afar it owned thy power and trembled like a star o'erfraught with light and splendor. Could I deem how dark a shadow should obscure its beam? Could I believe that pain could ever dwell where thy bright presence cast its blissful spell? Thou wert my proud Palladium. Could I fear the avenging destinies when thou wert near? Thou wert my destiny. Thy song, thy fame, the wild enchantments clustering round thy name were my soul's heritage, its royal dower, its glory, and its kingdom, and its power.
Request for Toy Piano by Tony Hoagland. Play the one about the family of the ducks, where the ducks go down to the river, and one of them thinks that the water will be cold, but then they jump in anyway and like it and splash around. No, I must play the one about the nervous man from Palestine in row 14 with a brown bag in his lap, in which a gun is hidden in a sandwich. Play the one about the handsome man and woman standing on the steps of her apartment, and how the darkness and her perfume and the beating of their hearts conjoin to make them feel like leaping from the edge of chance. No, I should play the one about the hard rectangle of the credit card hidden in the man's back pocket, and how the woman spent an hour plucking out her brows, and how her perfume was made from the destruction of 100 flowers. Then play the one about the flower industry, in which the migrant workers curse their own infected hands from tossing sheaves of roses and carnations into the back of the refrigerated trucks. No. I must play the one about the single yellow daffodil standing on my kitchen table, whose cut stem draws the water upwards so that the plant is flushed with the conviction that water has been sent to find and raise it up from somewhere so deep inside the earth, not even flowers can remember.
I don't do first runner-up. You guys know that. I figure it's enough tension as it is. So our 2017 Poetry Out Loud champ is Taj Morales. Okay. And should Taj, for some reason which is unacceptable, be unable to compete in at the Millersville competition, number 2 is Racel Diaz. Now I get to hand out certificates and recognize everybody excuse me, who participated in this amazing program. Jeremiah Lobriel. Oh, well. Chris Santos. Wonderful job. Devante Diaz. Fabulous job. Thank you. Such a good job. Carla Dominguez. Really wonderful. Stephanie Sanchez. Taj Morales. Good job. Franz Marie Velez Gaspar. You have a beautiful voice. Keep working on that. Thank you. Symphony Mitchell. And good to see your personality coming through in your essays. It was wonderful. Jesly Rodriguez. So poised. You look wonderful. Racel Diaz. I hope you're not a senior.
No, 9th grade.
9th grade? Maricel Mirabel. Tiara Anderson. Pristine Melendez. Genesis Concepcion. Elijah Ortega. Really good job. Esther Ramos Medina. Kevin Villegas. Really good. I was very impressed. Jonathan Garcia. Wonderful William Carlos Williams. I like that poem. You were great. Thank you. Morales Castillo Benitez. There she is. Nice job. Really good. Dalton Boyle. Very Francis Cologne. Venice Reed. Thank you. Wonderful job. All right, you might be getting a little tired of clapping, but too bad. Let's hear it again for these people. Best total group I have ever heard at a Reading High Poetry Out Loud. They were amazing. Thank you so much for coming. Please congratulate all of these students. We are very proud of them.